Hello, this is Mike Van Meter, and welcome to the Recovery is Possible podcast. I want to thank you for joining me. You can reach us at our Facebook site, which is also called Recovery is Possible, and our website, which is vanmeterwellnesssolutions.com. This podcast exists to educate the public about addiction, remove the stigma associated with addiction, and offer help and support to those suffering from addiction. So today we are going to be talking about programs for pilots and those in the commercial carrier industry. And this is a topic that I first picked up on when I went through treatment myself back at Father Martin's Ashley, which is now called Ashley up in Off of Grace, Maryland. And I had noticed that within the groups that were there were, different sort of amongst the patient population, different groups of people. Of course, law enforcement, which is, I was there was other law enforcement folks. There were medical doctors, nurses. And then I noticed a group of pilots and flight attendants that were there. And for those of you that are not familiar with recovery or have been around recovery, it seems like, and I've noticed this has been part of sort of the whole stigma associated with addiction, is there are groups of people that really will absolutely refuse to come to recovery groups because they don't know who's there. They have in their mind the types of people that come into recovery. A lot of people think that it's homeless folks, people that have criminal records, people that are just downtrodden, which is absolutely incorrect. My experience in recovery has been that it's actually quite the opposite, that there's a lot of very successful people that are in recovery. Not that that matters, because it doesn't matter, but I'm just talking about the stereotype and the stigma that people come to recovery with. And one of the things that we try to do on this program is dispel that myth. And what I have noticed, though, in order to get people that are in these communities, whether it's law enforcement, medical, business professionals, bankers, pilots, people in the airline industry, military, to get folks into recovery, in the beginning, at least, expose them to other people with very similar backgrounds. And then in time, they start working with others. But it just seems to be important to have special programs for people in these communities. And so today we have a guest, John Taylor, is going to be talking to us about the aviation industry, because that's the industry that he works in. And I met John through a program. I'm in another degree program right now through Hazelden Betty Ford, and I'm working on a degree in addiction and co-occurring disorders, which John is as well, and that's where we met. And just through our association with one another, we discuss these things because John and I have a similar background. John and I both were pilots in the military. He was in the Air Force and I was in the Navy. And John flew fixed-wing aircraft. I flew real aircraft, which were helicopters. Yeah, that was a real aircraft. And my philosophy is that every jet pilot out there wishes they were a helicopter pilot. That's what I keep telling myself for my own self-esteem and gratification. But anyway, I want to thank John for joining us today. Welcome, John.
Hey, thank you. Thanks a lot.
So you and I have met through Betty Ford, the graduate studies program through Betty Ford. And maybe we start off, John, with so what brought you to the program? Why are you in this degree program?
Well, if you'd have told me a year ago that I was going to be working on a graduate degree in addiction counseling, I would have said, you got the wrong guy. But I've been working in the program, the peer program that I've been working in through my airline for about 6 years. And I got to a point, I went to a Mississippi addiction conference. I live in Mississippi. I went to an addiction conference back in March. And I had thought about getting a certification or a license to become a counselor. But after going to this conference and meeting a lot of different people in the industry and in the field, I got a lot of good advice from different people, doctors and psychiatrists and counselors. And they said, if you really want to dig in deep and you really want to get involved, go back to school and get a graduate degree. And I was like, really? So I did a little research, and the Hazelden Betty Ford School of Addiction Studies came up. And I started digging further and further, and I started looking at financial options. And I researched the post 9/11 GI Bill. I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going to apply for it. I'm going to try this. I applied for that, and the doors just started opening. So I believe that things happen for a reason, and once those doors just started opening, it was almost like all right, here you go. This is what you're going to do. And next thing I knew, I was enrolled in school, and I'll be honest with you, it's been since we started in May, and I've thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. So I'm learning a lot of new things that I didn't know. But I think it's going to give me a lot of breadth and depth in helping pilots in the future. Not only will I just be able to be a peer monitor, but I'll also be able to counsel with them and non-pilots as well.
Yeah, and it's funny, John, is that in my own world, which is where I just retired from the FBI, but I still work with first responders around the country. That is exactly where I started. I started in my own community amongst pilots, and then of course, in time, realized, hey, wait a minute, what I'm learning applies to everybody. It's not just my community. But I think that you and I both are in unique positions where. Whether it's right, wrong, indifferent, it doesn't matter. The fact is that when I came to recovery, I have to admit, I did look for other people that were in law enforcement. Law enforcement's a community that's very closed. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody that law enforcement people really only really only trust. I think that's maybe a better way of putting it. Trust other law enforcement people. And that's who I was looking for. If I went to a counselor, if I went to therapy, if I went, basically anywhere, I was always looking for the people that were like me and that went through and could understand me, if that makes sense. Because I felt like at the time, nobody could understand where I was coming from, because it's just such a unique profession, as is the military. And that's what I was looking for. And so that's what I gravitated to when I finally got into long-term recovery and started working with people. I knew that I was looking for that when I came into recovery, and I wanted to provide that service. Now, in time, I've reached. I am now working with the broader society as well. But I do understand how important that is to those in these very unique professions, to have somebody that they can talk to. And like you, I was really just explaining to people what I had experienced. And it was very much a layman's version of experience, which is important. It's very important. But I feel already in the short time that I've been in this program that my breadth of knowledge, professional knowledge regarding addiction and recovery and other disorders, it's not just addiction. The co-occurring disorders is much broader now. And is that what attracted? Because maybe, John, if you could walk us through, so you came into recovery and your beginning was working with other pilots, correct? And people in your industry. That's where all this started, correct?
That's right. I'm in a program that it's called HIMS, HIMS, and that stands for Human Intervention Motivational Study, which it sounds like a crazy name. And literally, when the psychiatrists and the physicians and the FAA got together, they didn't want to have the word pilot and alcoholic or addict in the same sentence. So they literally came up with this fancy name called Human Intervention Motivational Study. And all it really is, it's a program. Everybody participates in it. American, United, Delta, FedEx, UPS, Southwest, JetBlue, UPS, all the majors participate in this program. And it's a conglomeration of HIMS certified psychiatrists, psychologists, pilots, and aviation medical examiners, AMEs. Those are the guys that give us our physical every 6 months or a year. And everybody is part of this program, and they get certified every 3 years. And so you're a HIMS certified AME, or you're a HIMS certified psychiatrist or psychologist, et cetera. So it was a conglomeration of minds that got together many years ago, several years back, to try to help pilots get into recovery and still maintain their licensure, still be able to keep their license. Now, what you don't really lose is your license when you when you come out and say that you're an alcoholic or you have a substance abuse problem, you lose your medical status. And if you don't have your medical status, then you can't fly. And so that time period that you're out of the cockpit is anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. It can be as long as 2 years, depending on how your recovery goes. So anyway, that's the program that I'm in. It's called HIMS. And I've been working in that. I've been sober for 7 years, and I've been working in this program for 6 years. They asked me if I would like to participate and be a part of it a year after I had a year of sobriety. I said, absolutely. Where do I sign up?
Mm. And is this a pretty active program? I mean, how often do you respond? How does this work? Does somebody reach out to you? Do you do interventions? Do you do a combination of the both?
All of the above.
Yeah,
exactly. We have it's a union-based committee, so it's sponsored by it's part of the Atlas Air Pilots Union, as it is with other airlines like Airline Pilots Association ALPA for Delta and all the other Southwest Airlines Pilots Association SWAPA. So it's part of the union, but we have a group of guys that work in the program that are in recovery, and our pictures and phone numbers are on the union website. And when a new hire gets hired at the company, we advertise. We let them know that, hey, if you ever get into a situation that involves alcohol and you might be in any kind of trouble, and or if you just feel like you need help, call one of us. And they can go to the union website anytime, and there's about 12 of us or our pictures and our phone numbers, and 24/7 they can call us. And so that's what usually happens is we'll get we'll get an email that goes into the HIMS mailbox that everybody sees that says, hey, I need help. That's what I've been seeing the most lately is an email will come up and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody from your committee. Can you call me? And of course, we'll make sure that is anybody going to get this guy? We'll make sure that somebody gets to him immediately. And then there's self-disclosure. People will self-disclose and say, hey, I can't control this anymore. I need help. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm. So when you went through that, did you actually reach out to this program yourself, or did you do this on your own?
I reached out to the program myself because I knew I was at a point in my life where I needed help. And I knew this program existed. I had heard about it when I had gotten hired. Let's see, I guess 3 years. I had been hired with the company for 3 years when I finally self-disclosed. And I looked up, just like I mentioned, I looked it up on the website, got a number, and I called a guy. And that was the heaviest phone call, the most difficult phone call I've ever made, because that was that first step of reaching out, I need help. I can't do this anymore. That was probably the most difficult phone call I've made in my life, but probably the most important one.
Sure, it saved your career and saved your life. Now, let me ask you: how did you, once you made the phone call, what happened there? What was the next step? What was the advice that was given to you, and did it work right away? Did you get what was the next step? Did you get sober right away, or did you struggle? And what did you think of the response that you got from the program?
Well, it happens really fast, and for a reason, because people start having second thoughts when they make that decision. So our goal usually is to get the guy into rehab like the next day. When they make that phone call, the next day they're in treatment, and that's usually how it happens. So for me, it was a little bit different. My wife and I had already scheduled our 10-year anniversary in Cancun. And so the guy that was in charge of the program said, yeah, go do that. But we'll put you on a plane and we're going to send you up to Knoxville, Tennessee, to a place called Cornerstone of Recovery. And that's where we send all of our guys. It's a group of different people, a lot of highly regulated industries. So you have like train engineers, pilots, flight attendants, nurses. So if you think of any of the highly regulated industries, this place, Cornerstone, kind of caters to them. But yeah, I went to Cancun for a week, and the whole week I spent telling my wife about all my secrets of where I hit alcohol and things like that. It was basically running one of the steps. Just here's what I've been doing for the last 30 years of my life, which a lot of it she knew, a lot of it she didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So a week later, I was in treatment, and it's a 28-day program. I was out of the cockpit for, just to fast forward, I was out of the cockpit for 16 months. And so you go through the 28-day program, then there's a intensive outpatient program for 3 to 4 months afterwards. You have to get a sponsor. They expect you to do 90 and 90, so 90 AA meetings in 90 days consecutively. You can't like pile up 3 in one day and then
you don't get credit for 3. I did 3 in one day.
Well, alcoholics, that's how we think,
That's right.
We'll do any way we can to get around the system and try to speed up that 90 days, but it's 90 consecutive days. Even if you do 3 in one day, that's one day of meetings. So you do that, and so the whole purpose of that is to get into recovery. And during that time, you're working with your HIMS certified AME, your aviation medical examiner, a peer sponsor, your own sponsor, and that's it. It's a process that you have to go through, and it takes a while. In some cases, it can take 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you meet with someone and they finally give you the go ahead to go back and fly. I'm assuming that there's a board or there's somebody that you have to meet with that makes that determination that you're far enough along in your recovery that it's safe for you to go back and fly.
That's right. And the peer monitor, which is what I do, writes a monthly report on the pilot. So I meet with these guys regularly. I talk to them, like once a week or a couple times a month. How are you doing? How's your recovery going? We're not sponsors for these guys, but we're making sure that their recovery is going well to help them get back into the cockpit and fly. And so we write a monthly report on these guys. Their HIMS AME writes a monthly report. And after a certain period of time, all those reports will go to Washington, D.C. Your package goes up to Washington, D.C. And the big wigs in the FAA medical examiners and the FAA psychologists and psychiatrists. Oh, and by the way, you have to have a full psychiatric eval to make sure you're not going to go fly an airplane into a building.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a psychological cognitive brain testing to make sure that you haven't killed too many brain cells and you don't have what they used to call wet brain, I think they called it.
Yeah, for advanced, like stage 4. Yeah.
Yeah, they would just want to make sure that you have the cognitive ability to still remember the things that you need to know. There are a lot of things to remember as a pilot and regulations. So they check that. And so when you get the green light from the psychologist and the green light from the psychiatrist and the green light from your AME and the green light from your peer sponsor, then you can go back and fly. So it's quite an involved process. The FAA wants to make sure, darn sure, that you're not going to go out and drink again before you go operate an airplane, which is good to know, for us travelers out there, for people who fly as passengers, that the pilots that are out there flying, they're physically fit, mentally, and if they have a problem with substance abuse, it's been taken care of.
Now, did you feel that this was in the early days, and I'm sure you had your doubts when you went into the program, did you find that this was something like people came alongside you and worked with you and helped you, or did you feel that it was combative, or were you reluctant to work with them, distrustful? What was sort of your mindset going into this program?
Well, because I think having a pilot peer sponsor, it's like you said earlier, the cops want to hang around with cops, and the cops want to work with cops. Well, I was working with a pilot who was also a recovered alcoholic, and he knows what my goal is, and so I know that my best interest was. He was interested in my best interest, and he wanted to make sure that I trusted him, and that we built a level of trust. So I didn't ever feel any combative stance from anybody. It felt well supported. I did feel like the FAA, honestly, and we still do, that the FAA takes too long for this process. Most of us believe that it shouldn't take 2 years for a guy to return to the cockpit. There are guys that are that are super ready, that it's taken them 24 months, and there are guys that they need a little more work, and they were back in the cockpit in 6 months. So it's not doesn't seem to be a very standardized flat curve on when to get back to the cockpit.
No, and that may be because the FAA does not have people that are in recovery. And I think to me, and I know in my own process, from the law enforcement field, particularly from the FBI, when I came into recovery, there really was no one else like me that was in that program. And
Right.
and it could be advising now. And of course, the Bureau had the EAP program, this employee assistance program as well. And they had therapists and they had psychologists. But just because you're a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist does not necessarily mean that you understand recovery. And I think that for the audience out there, that's important to understand, that just because somebody's a psychologist, just because somebody's a psychiatrist, does not mean that they understand recovery. And that was something I always advocated for when I was, in the Bureau, that we should have people like you and I, John, that were on staff that could work with people, because it would have been nice for me. And I'm a bit envious of the aviation industry that they have a program like you have, where they bring somebody else that's in your job series that is going through what you go through, and you can come alongside them and work with them. I never had that, actually, when I came. Now, that's something that we're trying to fix. And it's not just the Bureau, it's law enforcement wide. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this program with you today, is to, anybody that's out there in the law enforcement field, if you're in a command staff position, understand that this is a program that benefits you, benefits the public, and is something that is absolutely necessary. And so a program like what John is in would really, really help you.
Yeah, I think you're right. The psychiatrist, or actually, the psychiatrist that I had, that I had to do my I had to have a psychiatric eval once a year. He was also in recovery, so that really helped a lot, because he felt easier to talk to, because I know he's been there. And then pilots, we actually meet with all these folks once a year. We have a conference once a year, and brainstorm and share ideas, and we talk about the issues that we have. And the FAA folks, I have to say, that do help and support our program, they're in it because they want to be in it. And I think it's a volunteer program for them to be part of the HIMS part of it. So the fact that they volunteer and they want to be a part of it makes it more, it seems like they're more our advocate than they are our rival.
Do you have any statistics, as far as success rate in the program? Any data that's out there, or is that just something that recovery is just too nebulous? Because I know it's really hard when people say, how successful is AA, for example, or how successful is Smart Recovery or any other program that's out there. It's a really difficult thing because of the anonymous nature of recovery. But do you guys have any statistics?
That's a really good question. I don't have exact numbers for you, which I can get those. But I will tell you that it's a very highly successful program, because if you think about it from a pilot's perspective, we kind of have a captive audience. I mean, it's basically, hey, if you ever want to go fly an airplane again, then you're going to need to go through this rigorous program. What the bonus in that is the pilots end up embracing recovery for the most part. They're never going to drink again if they ever want to fly. And
right.
And I don't know the numbers, and I can find out the relapse rate. Relapse rate is extremely low, in the single digit percents, and it's extremely low.
Wow, that's really good.
Guys want to, they want to stay abstinent and keep flying airplanes. The really good bonus thing about this is that people actually get into real recovery. And I've seen a couple. I had 5 pilots that I was writing on, that I was monitoring or as a peer mentor for. And I would say 1 out of those 5, just to give you a percentage, 1 out of those 5, I would say, when he is done flying airplanes, he's probably going to pick up and start drinking again. Because he's just going to play the game and follow the rules and do what he needs to do until he, doesn't have to follow them anymore, and he retires and he can start drinking again. Mm-hmm. Most of the guys that I've talked to, you can tell when somebody's embracing recovery.
Yeah, you can.
Some guys will just they'll use the buzzwords and, live and let live. They'll say all the cliches that are on the wall in the rooms, but you can just tell when you talk to somebody, when they embrace recovery. They're loving life. They're positive. They love the way things are going now. And they're like, boy, I'm so glad I took this choice in my life instead of on the road that I was on, But as far as the relapse, we have a very, very low relapse rate. We have a very high success rate. And part of that, like I said, could be because we have a captive audience, You want to fly, then you don't drink. It's very simple.
Right. And I think that's something that, they talk about the bottom that people have to have. So those that are listening right now, John and I are in professions where that hammer, so to speak, can be kept over your head. It was the same thing with me having a security clearance. Hey, you do this, or we're going to pull your security clearance from you. And so that's an effective hammer, but not everybody has that hammer. And so somebody that's listening to this program right now may not have that hammer on them. But I will tell you this: no matter what your situation is in your life, there will be something that you lose, something dear that you will lose. And one of the catchphrases in recovery is keep drinking, don't worry, because you hear a lot of people say, well, look, I can't go to treatment because I have this job, or I can't be away from my business people have things that they feel is more important than getting well. I can't go do this because I'm just too busy. And the problem with that is that, well, you have to understand that when you come into recovery, whatever that thing is that's preventing you from taking the time to get well, you're going to lose it anyway. Mm-hmm. Maybe not right now, maybe not in a month from now, but you will eventually lose it, because addiction is progressive and it is deadly. You will die from addiction. The bonus is that you will lose everything and everyone that you hold dear, then you'll die. And that's what people need to understand. And I know that's my experience. In 8.5 years of recovery, I have lost track of how many people have gone down that path, and you will lose it. Now, the thing is that John and I are in professions where they pull out that hammer pretty quickly, and it's a pretty hard hammer, right? And they don't have, for a lot of people, it takes a little bit longer, but that is what will happen. That is what will happen to you if you don't get well. And there's a lot of pain associated with addiction, and you will get to the point where you experience enough pain. Now, what happens is you need to hope that the amount of pain, your pain tolerance, is just above death, because that's where we're all headed if we keep using. And do you agree with that, John?
Absolutely.
And I know that helped me. It helped me. It was, hey, that hammer, we will pull your security clearance if you don't get well. All right, it's up to you. You don't have to get well, but you don't have to work here. That was kind of the mentality that they had.
Absolutely. One of my favorite sayings by Tony Robbins: when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, only then will change occur.
Yeah, I love that saying.
It's the epitome of my life. And I really believe that the HIMS program, for me as a pilot, it didn't just save my career as a pilot. It saved my marriage. It saved my life, because, like you said, the eventuality of this disease is death. It's going to happen. It's death before your time. We're all going to die, but it's going to death before you really needed to go.
Right.
And what this did, like the hammer comes down, like you said, we need to get you into treatment, but there's a point where you turn. You actually have a realization that I really needed this. I really needed this. And for me, it happened really fast, because for years I had been trying to stop, and I wasn't able to successfully, trying all the techniques, less drinking, slow drinking, only drinking beer, only drinking on the weekends. None of that stuff worked. Mm-hmm. And when I finally got into recovery and got real help, I was like, I really needed this. I really did need this. And once I started living in recovery, facing it, man, it was an unbelievable life. And now I don't ever feel like I have to drink again. Now,
No.
that's not to say we still take it one day at a time, and that's how we live our lives. We take it one day at a time. And every morning I get on my knees and thank God that I don't have to drink again and that I didn't drink the day before.
No, I've never been to a meeting, a 12-step meeting, where after a period of recovery, let's just say 10 years, where somebody says, you know what, I just celebrated 10 years of sobriety. And now that I reflect on it, if I had it all to do over again, I'd still be drinking. I've never heard that. I've never heard that in a meeting. Now, I can tell you, I've been to a lot of meetings where people have picked up after a period of sobriety and looked back and said they absolutely regretted doing that. I've heard that plenty of times, but never somebody say, you know what, I wasted 10 years of drinking in my life. I've never heard that. Never heard that.
Either. And the level of shame that comes from, I see people that have left the rooms and gone back out, and then they come back, and the level of shame is so high.
Yeah.
At that point, and that's just seeing that in and of itself as a deterrent for me. I'm like, I don't ever want to feel that shame. But I look at what I've got too much to lose. I got a 13-year-old son. 13-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old son, and my wife my wife is now an addiction counselor. Out of all my recovery, my wife became a marriage and family therapist, and now she works at a treatment center and is designing a family program at a treatment center.
Now, did she start doing that after you got into recovery, or was she doing that before?
After. She was a loadmaster in the Air Force before, and she went to school and got her degree in industrial engineering, but then through my recovery, she learned that she was an Al-Anon. She was a codependent Al-Anon, and that she had some things she needed to work on. So she went through intensive outpatient treatment, and she got well first. And then I say well first from her codependency as an Al-Anon. She got well first, and then I got sober about a year later, and both totally different directions that we ever thought we would have been going. I'm in addiction recovery and grad school, and she is an addiction counselor at a treatment center, and designing the family program. So she works with the families to help them understand that side of it.
Yeah, my wife is heavily involved in Al-Anon as well. And anybody that's listening, I really encourage you to explore Al-Anon family programs. And if you're interested, we do I believe it's the first episode of this podcast series, as a matter of fact, is actually on Al-Anon. And so anybody that's interested in the Al-Anon program, go back and listen to that just to get a sense of what Al-Anon is all about. And so now that you're in this graduate program, how is it? I know you've been in as long as I have, so we're in our second or third semester in this program. How do you think that this graduate program has helped you, both in your personal recovery and how you can help others?
I've learned so much about the chemical side of it, the brain, what happens to the brain, especially in the pharmacology class. I've learned a lot about the difference between being a sponsor and being a counselor. When we had to practice counseling last semester and actually sitting down with somebody, that was difficult to do. But it's given me a depth of understanding of what happens in the brain, what happens emotionally, what happens mentally, and it, also with the families, the environment that they were brought up in or came up in. It's genetic. It's a genetic disease, but the environment plays a huge role as well, whether it perpetuates it or breaks the chain. But grad school so far, just 2 semesters, has given me a huge amount of insight and information on how this whole disease works. I look forward to the rest of the next 15 semesters.
Is that what it is? Do we have 15 semesters left?
I think
it seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think maybe
it seems like it.
maybe 11 or 12 more, I think, after this, something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm like you. Uh, it's funny because, and maybe you feel the same way, that the funny thing about recovery, and those of you that are out there listening that have experimented around or played around with recovery and studied sort of the history of recovery programs in the United States, you realize that the pioneers of these programs actually were not doctors. They were not doctors. Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, but Dr. Bob Smith was an alcoholic. And we're talking about the 1930s as well, right? We're talking about the AA program here. These were not people that had a lot of experience with alcohol. Nobody knew what they were doing. And these were just people going out and basically explaining how they got sober. And it was kind of a mixture of medical information and spiritual information, historical information, psychology, business even. And it was all just kind of like mixed together to come up with a program to help people get sober. And in my case, and maybe your case as well, John, I really embraced the program. And by the way, it was when I really and truly threw myself into recovery that I got well and learned this stuff and learned some basic principles. And there's a lot of like taglines and throwaway lines in recovery circles that seem very simplistic that have really held the test of time and have proven to be accurate. And so what's funny, John, is that as you and I go further into this program and actually learn the science behind what has been going on with us, I realize like how accurate some of these programs have been. Now, they weren't using the terminology. They weren't getting in and looking at academic studies and graphs and surveys and all of that. But it's almost like the program existed, and then when science went back and verified that it was correct all along. Is that kind of the sense that? But now I can go back and explain to somebody I'm working with scientifically why what is going on with them, why it's going on, particularly when we talk about the psychopharmacology, the medications that, of course, we have a lot more medications today than they had back in the 1930s to choose from. But I'm more articulate in how I explain all of that works. Is that how you feel?
Absolutely. And the big book says that we're not counselors, we're not doctors, physicians, so we don't give advice. In our AA meetings, we just tell everybody what worked for me, and that's how it works. We hear whatever everybody says how they worked. It worked for them. But after hearing all those stories for so many years, now in the academic classes, it's all coming together. All the dots are being connected. It's all making sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exactly the same thing it's doing with me.
Yeah, and it's a great message. And you and I are both living examples that if you follow the suggestions, that's what we talk about here. We don't tell anybody what to do. We just make suggestions, whether it's in my field in law enforcement or your field, the air carrier industry. It's just, people come to me all the time and ask me, well, how did you do this? And I explain how I did it. And, you're welcome to follow it or not. And I can explain it to you. But we can't make people get well. You have to want to get well. I didn't get well until I truly wanted to. And you can't do it for other people. You can't do it.
That's right.
And I know that in my case, that as long as I wanted to keep working where I was working, then I had two options. That was it. It's like a multiple choice test. A and B.
Absolutely.
There was no C, D, or E, all of the above. It was A and B. And I know in the commercial pilot industry that you're in, it's pretty much the same thing. And, so there is a path. And I think that, that's the important takeaway here. And so with that, John, so just as a final note, what advice, a couple things, your final advice to anybody that's out there, particularly in your career field, any advice that you would give them. And then finally, how can they get hold of your program? If somebody wants to reach out today to get well and you are in the commercial air carrier industry, how do they go about doing that?
So good question. The biggest thing that I hear from guys is I get a call and the guy said, just an example of one of my guys called me 3 years ago on his way home from jail. He had gotten a DUI, spent the night in jail. And the first thing he said, broken voice, he said, my career's over. And I said, nope, it's not. I said, there's help. There's help available. There is hope. And if you just stick with me and let me show you the way, you will be back in the cockpit flying again. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But my biggest advice is don't be afraid to call us. We're your ally, the HIMS program. As far as finding us, you can go to HIMS Pilot Program on Google. Just Google it, and it'll pull up the website. And multiple drop downs from there will give you phone numbers to call for whatever company you work for. And even if you're just a corporate guy, if you're a corporate guy who doesn't have a HIMS program, we can still help you. I sponsored a guy, or I mentored a guy that wasn't. He didn't have a HIMS program, but I became his peer monitor, and I was able to help him work through the steps that he needed to take to get back in the cockpit. Your initial goal at the time is going to be, all I want to do is get back in the cockpit, fly again so I can work, feed my family. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. You can have that goal. But the bonus that comes out of that is you'll get into recovery. And you'll look back and you'll say, boy, my priorities have changed. It wasn't that I just wanted to fly. I'm so glad I'm in recovery now. So don't be afraid. That's my biggest takeaway. Don't be afraid that you're going to lose everything and lose your job. There's still hope. Just contact the HIMS program.
And your only regret is going to be, if there is any regret, is, wow, I should have done this earlier. I know that was now, if that's somebody that's out there thinking this right now, the fact is it's never too late. And really, it's just, you just need to do it and get well. And your life will just get so much better. How much better is your life now, John, that you've gotten into sobriety?
Just tenfold. I can't begin to tell you how much better. It's not
even 100%. It's more than that. If there was more than 100%, it would be that.
It is. It's unbelievable. I didn't think it could ever be this good. My marriage is happy. My kids are happy. They're healthy. They're not dealing with an alcoholic father anymore. They're growing up in a healthy environment. They're really good kids. And I think if I had not gotten into recovery when I did, I don't know. Who knows where they would be right now? They're teenagers.
Yeah.
And they're doing great. They're thriving. So my biggest thing is I hope guys that are not afraid. I'm an open book. Every co-pilot that I fly with, I tell them that I'm in the HIMS program, that I'm in recovery. And that lets them know. And that's actually paid off later, because I've had people contact me through Facebook Messenger and say, hey, I heard that, about this HIMS program. How did it work? How does it work? And I've actually gotten guys into recovery through the back door that way, just by being open about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's happened to me as well, by letting people know. I think it helps you in a couple of ways. You travel a lot. I travel a lot. And, I'm not suggesting that if you are in recovery and you're listening to us, I'm not suggesting that you breach your anonymity with other people. That's exactly. A very, it's a personal decision. You're free to do that. You're never, ever free to disclose anybody else's identity, but it's a personal thing. I choose to do it. Sounds like you do too. And it has helped me as well, because when I travel, it's very common to travel, and we all know that a lot of drinking, a lot of partying goes on the road, no matter what business you're in. And I know it has saved me, because then when I got on the road and you're away from your family, you're away from your support group, I don't have people pressuring me to do things that I really shouldn't be doing. And for me, I have found that that's been something that's been taken off of my plate. I'm not as tempted when I'm on the road to, I don't know if you feel that way, John.
Yeah, you nailed it. Exactly. And that's part of the reason I tell the co-pilots I fly with that I'm in recovery and I work as a HIMS peer monitor. And now I tell them I'm in grad school working on a addiction counseling degree.
Right.
But what that also does is it plants a little seed in their head. I'm not going to be asking this guy to go out for beers tonight.
Yeah. Because it happens. When they don't know that, they always, there's always pressure. But I'm like you. I feel like they just don't pressure me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We know Taylor's not going to drink, so
right.
I'm not even going to bother asking him, and that's fine. I'm totally okay with that.
Right.
I'll be the slam clicker that goes to my hotel room and You won't see me until it's time to go fly the next day. And
Yeah,
actually, honestly, I don't do that. I have become quite a movie buff, and every city I go to, there's a movie theater. And so you name any movie that's out there, I've seen. And they are open, by the way, the movie theaters. So that's another thing I do. I have my butt in the seat of a movie theater instead of at a bar stool somewhere.
that's it. And like you said, we do get contacted by people that need help, and that's fantastic. So, John, with that, thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. You taking the time to do it. And so, as we always like to say, that I and John don't represent any group. I know that we're talking about, we did talk about various recovery groups that are out there, but we don't represent them. We're just talking about our experience here.
That's right.
And so we just represent ourselves, and our only purpose in giving any of this information is to share with you what we've done, because it's helped us, and it might help you too. So if we've said something that doesn't apply to you or you don't agree with, that's fine. Just discard that. But if there's anything that you can use to help yourself or others, then take that as well. So that's what we do in recovery. We help ourselves along the way, and we help to impart the knowledge we've gained to others as well. So with that, please visit our Facebook page, Recovery is Possible, and our website, VanMeterWellnessSolutions.com. Let us know how we're doing. If there's any topics or ideas that you have, certainly let us know that. Follow us. Pass us along to your friends and family that you think that may be able to benefit from this. And guys, we will see you next time, and take care of yourselves. Thank you.